Hello? If you saw the structure of the system in part 1, today I will reveal the hellish reality I experienced firsthand. Let me tell you how the free healthcare I received changed my life. All my pain started from childbirth. In Korea, they do an ultrasound. One more time in the last month, but in Canada, they only do it twice until about the 20th week. There is a structural problem because the doctor only examines and diagnoses with their hands, which means they only find out the child's exact position later. In the end, during childbirth, the doctor discovered that the baby was lying sideways, only after I had been pushing in a kneeling position for 3 hours, which caused my knee cartilage to rupture. Ultimately, the doctor was able to use vacuum extraction to pull the baby out, and this could have led to a serious situation, not just for me, but for the baby as well. My friend's child also had the unfortunate experience of suffering from developmental disabilities for a long time for similar reasons. If it were in Korea, I would have already had a cesarean section through ultrasound. I struggled with knee pain after giving birth, but my doctor initially dismissed it as a postpartum issue. In the end, after pleading for 6 months about a situation so serious that I could have dropped my baby, I finally got an MRI order. But I had to wait another year, so I was only able to get the MRI after my second child was born. With the results of that test, I met with an orthopedic specialist 5 months later and received a final diagnosis of a torn knee cartilage and severe arthritis as a result. Ultimately, it took me 2.5 years after the onset of knee pain to finally learn the name of my condition. However, I was denied joint replacement surgery because I was under 60 years old. The reason is that there is no manual for when the artificial joint reaches the end of its lifespan and needs to be replaced. In the end, I could only undergo the surgery to change the axis a year later. Can you imagine what the quality of my life was like? I regret having a child here. Unlike in Korea, I was only allowed a few ice chips during the 17 hours of labor. Not even a sip of water or food. It wasn't until 10:50 p.m., after the baby was born, that I was able to drink water, and the only food they gave me was 2 slices of toast. Still, the nurse in charge said that Asian women seemed to be weaker than Western women, and she even moved the bathroom in the hospital room to a wheelchair because I might faint due to my low blood pressure of about 50. However, from the moment the baby was born, he was placed right next to the mother's bed. And since it was the mother's responsibility until discharge, I couldn't sleep at all, feeling almost like I was being tortured. From the morning, a different nurse would come every hour to sit with me and practice breastfeeding. And during the rest of the time, I was soothing the crying baby and changing diapers, feeling like I was being treated as a breastfeeding machine after giving birth. This became the reason I've been relying on the hospital from that time until now. However, there is a reason I recommend giving birth in Korea that is even more important than all of this. It is simply the jaundice and Mongolian spots, which are very common for Koreans. In this country, jaundice levels are taken very seriously, so babies undergo continuous blood tests from the moment they are born until after they are discharged. The baby is so small that it's hard to get blood, so they poke and squeeze every part of the hands, feet, and forehead, causing the child to scream. While the nurse, looking like she might cry, pokes another spot, creating quite a scene. Mongolian spots are also not easily recognized here, which leaves room for misdiagnosis. It was the hardest for me to repeatedly inflict that pain on my child. About 10 years later, one side of my chest was swollen and painful, but I was busy with work, so when I visited a nearby walk-in doctor, they told me to get a diagnostic mammogram. I was told that I had to make the appointment myself, and when I called, they said there was a 3-month wait. I just thought it might be related to my period. So I only had a regular mammogram, and the results came back normal. There's one thing I would like to mention briefly here. I've heard that the breast density of Asian women is significantly higher than that of Western women. I found out about that after I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and as I talked to my friends about it, I realized there are really many people who, like me, are unaware. Also, for mammograms, they are offered for free every 2 years after turning 40, and since it's recommended, by the primary care physician, many people actually miss out on it. Now it's becoming more widely known, and in the case of my primary care physician, I mentioned it and learned that with dense breasts, the tissues are so tightly packed that even if there is a tumor, it doesn't show up. So I also came out normal. But while I was reading the report that I received directly, it said I was normal, so I was relieved. However, later, when the symptoms didn't go away, I read it again. It turned out that my breast density was the highest. It came out as D, so it means it's very dense. As you can see on the screen, the higher the density, the 4 to 6 times higher, the risk of breast cancer is said to be. Since my density was at its maximum, I was in the highest case. It was only after reading that I realized I needed to discuss it with my primary doctor, and rushed to do so. Whenever I meet with my primary doctor, since I am Asian, I always insist on having an ultrasound or a diagnostic mammogram instead of a regular mammogram. And there are no doctors who argue against that. If you feel something is off, whether you go in as a walk-in or anywhere else, you should get a diagnostic test or an ultrasound. In some cases, the ultrasound might be quicker. The waiting time for the appointment is, so you can just tell your doctor to go with the faster option between the two. It was only after a month that I told my doctor, and they immediately requested an emergency MRI. I actually tend to be quite weak and often get sick, so there are many times when I unconsciously endure pain, thinking it's just me being dramatic. Since I haven't been at the company for long, I didn't want to say anything negative and felt like I didn't need to worry about others. But I ended up holding back my pain and went to the hospital. The doctor realized that I tend to endure pain too well, which can worsen my condition. The fact that I received an MRI, which usually takes about a year, in just 2 weeks, was entirely thanks to my doctor's proactive approach. The MRI results showed a tumor, suspected of being breast cancer, and my doctor told me to prepare myself mentally and urgently ordered a biopsy. Here, the clinic admin is not the nurse from each clinic, but rather the admin, administrative staff, and receptionists. People like this can do medical admin work after about a year of training, but since they are learning terms like medical words, they are not nurses. Due to a mistake by the clinic admin, I was denied a biopsy as part of the administrative process, and the receptionist neglected this, resulting in a week passing without getting a date for the test. I was only able to understand the situation and get the test done after I personally called to confirm this fact and contacted the primary physician. I ended up getting tested 10 days later. Everyone treated it as an emergency, but the surgeon's secretary was trying to postpone the appointment, saying she hadn't received the test results. I had to request confirmation again to meet the doctor on time. So can you imagine how the administrative process is here? In the end, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in mid-February. The doctor is saying that the tumor is too large and widely distributed. And while ordering a complete resection surgery, it shouldn't have spread to the chest muscles. If they resect the muscles, it could significantly hinder the use of the arm. However, the surgery is scheduled for 3 months later, and I couldn't help but burst into tears after holding them back for so long. I don't understand what you're saying. I asked if I should hurry up and do it. But they said there was no choice, because the only date that matched with the other surgeon was that day. When I asked my primary doctor if I could see another doctor, they said it would take several months. And because I was diagnosed with cancer, I could only have surgery 3 months later. I am currently receiving disability benefits and preparing for my hip surgery date, which has been scheduled for a month from now, after waiting for 1 year and 8 months. Unlike the elderly, where every illness is directly linked to life, the younger generation inevitably faces longer waiting times, resulting in a significantly higher number of young people like me receiving disability benefits compared to other countries. Many have also left for the US or Australia. These days, there is a saying that all the young Canadians have left and only immigrants remain in Canada. Buy time by spending money. If you obtain a diagnosis through an MRI or CT scan using a private inspection agency, you can get emergency classification through your primary doctor, which speeds up treatment. If you have health insurance in your country, I highly recommend getting both diagnosis and treatment in your country. If you have made a surgery or MRI appointment, make sure to ask your doctor's office or the MRI hospital office to put you on the cancellation list and call them every few days to remind them. In this country, the system rewards proactive individuals. In Canada, workplaces offer convenient sick leave or leave of absence, and there is no risk of being fired. It's illegal. Please take advantage of this and receive treatment in your country and return to work. Additionally, if the company offers a premium extended health plan, there is a premium plan that includes a primary care physician. So if getting tests or treatment in your home country is difficult, I highly recommend it. I regret not doing this. I hope you all do not repeat the same mistakes I made and protect your health and life in Canada based on the advice I gave you today. There are private diagnostic medical institutions in the Vancouver area. In some places, they even have family doctors assigned, so you can get tests and diagnoses, but they can't perform surgeries that require hospitalization, however. There are places where you can receive various services all at once. Make sure to do your research. And if you search for private clinic or private MRI on Google, you'll find very detailed information by region. I strongly recommend that you call there to receive a consultation. Check the costs and get tested. Thank you for watching.